Hey, what's up? Welcome to MARTI GEE ON, the podcast, your go-to spot for real talk, real perspectives, and really relevant issues topped with a scoop of, fun. Welcome to Volume 1, Episode 5, Disconnected. Why it's so much easier today to break relationships than actually make relationships.
I don't even know what that means.
Today we're diving into a topic that's hotter than a summer barbecue. How political polarization is messing with our relationships and how communication online is making it worse. Now, if you have a pulse, you see what's going on in the world. The most common action I hear now is, I'm no longer talking to, fill in the blank, with, I'm no longer talking about, running a close second. Social media is starting to be less social. Whether you're 25 or 54, liberal, conservative, or somewhere in between, and this episode is going to apply to you. I'm going to take us on a field trip of Adler & Town's classic communication model. Now, trust me, if you understand how your model works, you'll be able to save those relationships and still have a difference of opinion. So grab your coffee, your kombucha, or whatever fuels your vibe, and something to take notes. And let's get into it. Segment 1, The Sender. Ideological encoding in a digital age. All right, now let's start with the sender. The person starting, the conversation usually is the sender. Draw a big S someplace. In politically charged discussions, the sender's message is often shaped by their beliefs, values, and assumptions. But here's the T. Digital communication encourages speed and brevity, which can totally strip away any nuance and any empathy. So today, before anyone can get what you're saying, they are feeling it. Draw a big S again, somewhere on a piece of paper, maybe to the left. That's you, the S, for super, or sender. Before digital, you sent a message and the model moved as fast as you sent the message. All right, picture this. Here's a liberal tweet. If you don't support climate action, you're a part of the problem. Now, that might feel empowering to say, but to a conservative friend, it's coming across as dismissive and maybe even hostile. It's not just tweets, though. It's text, comments, sometimes memes. Memes can have the same effect. When we communicate quickly and without context, that's when the messages are more likely to be misinterpreted. So what's the takeaway? Before hitting send, ask yourself, is this the message that's clear that I want to send? Is it kind? A little thoughtfulness can go a long way, especially when it comes to preventing misunderstandings. And if you're not sure, do what I do. Sometimes I just wait. I'll just sleep on it because, I'm going to send it sometime. Segment 2, the message. Editorialized content and polarized tone. Now, draw a big M right next to that S to the right of it. In today's digital world, we're constantly bombarded with editorialized, sensationalized content. Think cable news segments or viral social media posts. And guess what? That shapes how we communicate. For example, if we're watching a heated debate on TV or one of those shows, someone might post on Facebook, how can anyone still support that policy? That kind of language might get likes from people who agree, but it can also alienate others who feel attacked. The problem is when we mimic the people that are polarized in that tone on the TV we consume, our messages become more extreme and less empathetic. And that's what makes it harder to have productive conversations. So here's the tip. Pause before you post. Ask yourself, am I adding to the noise or am I fostering understanding? Sometimes a little restraint can make all the difference. And hey, if you're feeling spicy, like some of my friends do, maybe just call a friend instead of venting online. Nothing wrong with picking up the phone. Segment 3. The channel. Digital versus face-to-face communication. Now, up above the message, write a C. Above that M. So you got an S on one side, you got an M right next to it on the right. Put a C on top of that M. That's the channel. Now we're going to talk about that. That's the medium that we use to communicate. Now, these days, we're relying more on text, social media, and email, and a lot less face-to-face communications, and that's the big deal. Well, here's why. Digital communication lacks non-verbal cues. You can't hear tone, voice, facial expressions, and body language. Those are the things that we use to help understand each other. For example, a sarcastic comment in a thread might be taken completely literally, sparking an unnecessary conflict. That's like one of my biggest frustrations. It's like sometimes people that don't know me, I have to spend time explaining that was just a sarcastic comment. Compare that to a face-to-face conversation where you can see the other person smile or hear the hesitation in their voice. You can see them feel uncomfortable and move around a little bit. Those cues help us navigate tricky topics with empathy and care. So here's my challenge to you. Next time you're about to have a tough conversation, maybe do it in person. If that's not possible, maybe pick up the phone. Sometimes hearing the person's voice is still better than relying on text alone. And hey, bonus points if you throw in a GIF to lighten the mood. Now, also, some text formats, and sometimes you can actually do this nowadays, you can actually record your voice and send that over text versus typing the text. I recommend that highly over sending the text. Record your voice. That way they can at least hear the tone and the tenor. Segment 4, the receiver, decoding through a political lens. Now let's shift to the receiver, the person on the other end of this conversation. Here's the thing: we all interpret messages through our own political biases and experiences. And in the digital world, that's amplified. For example, a conservative might read a liberal's post about healthcare reform as an attack on personal responsibility rather than a call for compassion. Or a liberal might see a conservative's meme about fiscal responsibility as a lack of empathy. The result, the message gets completely distorted, and the receiver feels attacked or dismissed. So what can we do? I'd say practice active listening. That's so cliche. Active listening, what does that mean? Just before you react, just ask yourself, what is this person trying to say? What is their intention? Sometimes a little curiosity can help us see past our own biases. And hey, if all else fails, just send a heart emoji. It's hard to argue with love. Or even do what I do sometimes and say, huh? Or what do you mean? Or try to throw something in there to just break the tension if you feel it. I'll do that all the time just to break it up. Segment 5, the cycle of digital misunderstanding. Here we go. It's feedback. Yes, the big feedback loop. So here's what you need to do. So you have the S, you have the message for the M, you have the R for the receiver, you have the channel up top, and you put an arrow underneath it. Underneath that whole drawing, and that arrow going back to the S. That's the feedback loop. Now, before, things were pretty simple. You just wait for the person to talk back to you or send a letter back to you or call you back. This is where things are different. In digital communication, feedback is it's immediate, it's reactive, and lacking any empathy. For example, a conservative might reply to a liberal's tweet, "You're just brainwashed," shutting down any chance of productive conversation. Or a moderate might try to mediate a Facebook argument only to be accused of both sidism or riding the fence. You know what I mean? The problem is, defensiveness or dismissive feedback doesn't resolve conflicts. It just escalates it. And then that can lead to strained or even broken relationships. So, what do I suggest? Before you respond, again, breathe. Breathe. Ask yourself, is this feedback constructive? Is it kind? A little empathy can go a long way in breaking the cycle of misunderstanding. And if you're feeling fired up, maybe just take a step away from the keyboard for a bit. Your sanity will thank you. And I also say, think about your intention. What is the intention of what you're saying? Do you intend to hurt somebody? Probably not. I think about that all the time before I write or say anything, is what am I intending to do before I type? Think about that and then type, because that might slow it down a little bit. Segment 6, noise, the overwhelming interference of digital communication. Finally, we got to talk about it. Noise, the interference that disrupts communication. So how do we just do this? Okay, so on that arrow that you wrote there, that little arrow in the bottom, take a little squiggly and just draw it across that arrow. Now what that does is that just distorted that whole message. It's not a clear message anymore. And that's the problem with today's digital communication. That feedback completely messed up in today's world. Noise is everywhere, from constant stream of editorialized content on social media, the emotional baggage we all have in every conversation. For example, a family dinner might turn intense after everyone watches a different kind of polarized cable news or something on the internet earlier that day, or a liberal might feel too frustrated to engage after seeing a conservative friend share a misleading article. The result is the message completely gets lost and relationships suffer, trust erodes. How do we reduce the noise? Simple. Limit your exposure to inflammatory media. This is what I'm trying to do now. Create a calm, respectful environment for dialogue. I'm actually reaching out to my friends that are more conservative with an open mind. And hey, if all else fails, just put on some lo-fi beats and chill for a bit. You'll thank me later for that. But I try to really reach out with that intention of, let me hear what you have to say. And try to defuse the argument. Try to defuse the potential of hurt feelings, because I'm not there to attack. And as I've always said, I can't learn if everybody agrees with me. Segment 7, feelings versus opinions. Validating emotions in difficult conversations. Now, before I go, I want to take a minute to talk about something that often gets overlooked in these conversations: feelings. Here's the thing. Differences of opinions are inevitable. They're going to happen, but we can't devalue someone's feelings just because we don't agree with them. For example, a conservative might feel dismissed when a liberal says, "You're just scared of change," or a liberal might feel hurt when a conservative says, "You're too sensitive." The truth is, feelings are real to the person experiencing them, even if we don't understand or share those feelings. And when we dismiss or invalidate those feelings, we shut down the possibility of any connection possible. How do we navigate this? Acknowledge the emotions behind the opinion. Say, look, I understand how you feel. Instead of saying you're wrong to feel that way, try saying something like, I can see this really is important to you. Help me understand why. When we validate someone's feelings, we create a space for empathy and understanding, even if we feel like we disagree on the facts. We don't have to agree on everything. And that's where real connection begins. So let's make room for feelings. They matter. I always say, I like to use the example of when I used to do debate in high school. I've had my face eaten off many a time if my argument wasn't right, or I would do the same with whoever I was debating, and I'd eat their argument. But after everything was said and done, we left friends because we were attacking the argument, not attacking each other. Conclusion: bridging the divide in a digital world. All right, let's wrap this up. Political polarization is a complex issue, but at its core, it's about communication. The shift to digital editorialized communication has made it easier to talk, but even harder to connect. But here's the good news. We can fix this by prioritizing face-to-face conversations, or at least maybe listening and having an active conversation over the phone, or just sending a voice text. Practicing active listening and being mindful of our tone, we can bridge the divide, one conversation at a time. Let's not forget, it's okay to have different opinions, but we can't devalue someone's feelings. Emotions are real. Acknowledging them is the first step towards understanding. So next time you feel the urge to argue online, take a step back. Remember, real connection starts with listening. Now, hey, thanks for tuning in to MARTI GEE ON, the podcast. If you've enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe. Leave me a message review. Tell me what you liked, what you hated. I'm okay with that. I've got a thick skin. Share it with some people. This is something that's gonna be top of mind for a long time. And if you have a story about navigating your friendships and relationships in this political space, I'd love to hear from you. Drop me a line or a message, martig@gmail.com, or connect with me on Facebook. Until next time, keep it real, keep it fun, and keep connecting all you can. And if anything, remember, MARTI GEE ON, the podcast. Cheers.